Let's get some analysis then. Our foreign editor, Armen Georgian, is with me. And Armen, clearly a tense day in Brazil as these proceedings start to get underway.
Yeah, tense because passions have already been running very high in this election campaign. Lula, the former president, now wears bulletproof vests at his rallies. And in this very polarized society, it's easy to see the other side as an enemy rather than simply as a political rival. I think it's fair to say for supporters of both of these candidates, there's something messianic about Bolsonaro or Lula. They're not just voting for a candidate, but voting to save Brazil, as it were. Saving Brazil by voting for Lula or Bolsonaro. And the stakes are obviously rising because the polls are tightening. So those two things are linked. And people are now saying, well, we can't possibly give Lula a third term in office. He's had two already. It would be the end of Brazil. And on the other side of the divide, we can't possibly give Bolsonaro a second term. That would be the end of Brazil. So that's kind of the atmosphere. It's a very fraught situation, but I think Bolsonaro has a choice today. He could either increase the political temperature a bit more if he really wants to tailor a message to his supporters first and foremost, or he could tack to a more centrist message, a more moderate message to try to get centrist voters to back him, focus on what he's going to do about the economy and so forth. There aren't as many undecided voters this year as before. That's according to a poll aggregator, but still, it's not a bad electoral tactic for any candidate to try and get undecideds, even if there aren't as many of them this time round. So he does have, I think, a choice to make today in what direction he wants to go.
And we'll see what he says later on today, Armen. But looking ahead to the election next month, there are already fears that Bolsonaro is going to stir distrust in the election process. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, Bolsonaro has a history, actually, of calling the voting system into question. In the 1990s, when there was a paper voting system in Brazil, Bolsonaro criticized that system. He said that it was rigged, and he at that point spoke out in favor of electronic voting. But when electronic voting was introduced, he didn't like that either. And actually, after the 2018 election, he said that electronic voting had robbed him of an outright victory in the first round of that election. But he then later failed to present evidence to support that claim. In a sense, it didn't matter then because he was still the winner. He became president of Brazil. But what would happen if he called it into question if he actually lost in October? This is the big thing that worries his opponents. Would he then not accept the results in Trump style? And it's certainly true that just as with Trump supporters, Bolsonaro supporters are very, very loyal, very attached to the man that they call the legend.
Armen Georgian, thanks very much indeed.